Pretty. I'm Professor of Environment and Society at the University of Essex, and I'm a member of the Essex Climate Action Commission. Well, the Climate Action Commission really is a kind of novel idea to link people within a county to think about the climate crisis. In some ways, it's already upon us. We have more extreme weather events. The world has warmed by 1 degree on average since pre-industrial period. Over land, it's a bit more, over sea, a bit less. And that might not sound like a whole lot when we are thinking about, for example, the weather. 1 degree sounds like a very small amount. But if we think of the temperature of a body, 1 degree above normal is a sign that you're ill. 2 degrees and you're getting pretty ill, and 4 degrees you're in hospital and close to death. And so we're at over 1 degree, and probably we're going to see 2 degrees locked in the course of this century if we act quickly. And the Climate Action Commission's work is really to say, okay, we recognize this is a really serious issue for all of us, but we can do something about it. And here are the sorts of things that we can be doing within Essex. And we hope that that will become something of a kind of leadership piece to point towards what people elsewhere in the UK can be doing as well. Things that we can do are really, there are lots of options. It might feel as though we're all a bit restricted under lockdown at the moment, but assuming that there'll be some kind of normality that we come back to, we should be thinking about really one big thought, and that is how to reduce our personal carbon emissions down to about 1 tonne per person. And the bigger picture is this: the world emits around 50 gigatons, that's billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So that's all greenhouse gases each year. And for a world population of 7.8 billion, we need to get that to around about 10 gigatons from 50. So that's a big cut in order to return the planet to a safe place for humanity. So about 1 tonne per person across the world would do it. In the UK, we currently are emitting on average from each of us around 7.5 to 8 tonnes of carbon per year. So we need to be thinking about how we can act to take that kind of 7 to 8 tonnes down to 1 tonne. And the sort of thing that I would be saying at the moment is, how about cutting 1 tonne in 21? What could you do to do that? And really the Climate Action Commission has been thinking about actions around food. Meat is quite a large contributor to carbon emissions. So if we can cut our meat consumption by choosing vegetarian or vegan diets, that is really helpful. That would save about 0.8 tonnes per year, between 0.7 and 0.9, depending on how much. If you can't do a whole diet, then maybe 2 meat-free days a week would be a kind of starting point. And that would be something that we could start to do right away. There are other actions around the home and sourcing our electricity, making sure it comes from renewable sources. Travel, well, we're not doing much of that at the moment in lockdown, but we could be thinking about investing in an electric vehicle. Everybody in Britain is going to need to have done so by 2030. So we might as well do that now. An electric vehicle would save you 2 tonnes on a normal year's mileage of around 10,000 miles. And finally, we could be thinking about kind of how to intervene on the sort of stuff that we buy and use. And clothing is an interesting one. There's a good campaign around clothing. Make sure we wear stuff at least 20 times if we're going to buy it. So don't buy stuff that you're going to just wear once and then throw away and buy another one. Try to kind of think about how to keep stuff for a longer period of time. So there are a whole range of options. Those are just a few of probably 30 or so options that the Climate Action Commission has been looking at how to reduce our individual carbon emissions and footprints in order to get to that 1 tonne per year for each of us. A better environment, a safer place for humanity when it comes to the climate crisis has many effects that are beneficial for us, for our own health, that are beneficial for what we would call biodiversity, for species and plants and animals, and better for the economy as well. We know that spending time in nature is actually good for our health. This is something that many of us have recognized as really important during the 3 lockdowns that we've been subject to. But our research from the University of Essex has shown that our health benefits substantially from engagement with green places, engagement with communities. Volunteers, for example, live 2 years longer than non-volunteers. So if we can think about how we would make better use of an environment that is higher quality, some of that might involve kind of volunteering around the places where we live and work, and eating well. I think that's another kind of important area. If we make choices about our food, if we're able to make those choices, and those are healthy choices, including for the climate benefit, reducing meat consumption, then we know that will have impacts upon carbon dioxide emissions, but it will definitely have a positive impact upon rainforests such as in the Amazon, which are really important sources of oxygen for the whole atmosphere, and also very good at sucking out the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and stopping climate change. So a better environment, in short, does mean better health for us individually, but it also means a better economy, because it's quite clear that the climate crisis may affect extreme weather conditions. There'll be more drought and more rainfall events, such as we're already seeing in Essex, higher sea levels, which will threaten the 400 miles of the Essex coastline. But really the biggest challenge will be that economies will suffer considerably. And we want to be taking early enough action to be able to protect economies, our health, and the environment as well. In many ways, all of those things are very closely connected. Me most about the work of the Climate Action Commission has been to bring together people from a lot of different sectors within Essex, those concerned with the environment, businesses, people in public sector and in private sector, the old and the young, local authorities at all different kinds of levels, and to say, you know what, we can't really sit around and wait. The key actions need to be taken to reduce emissions in this very decade we're in. We're in 2021 already, and we pretty well need to have reduced global emissions by a half by 2030. And that's only 9 years away, slightly less than that already. So we've got to be acting quickly, and we need leadership in our agencies to be able to say, first of all, this is possible. It's then desirable. Here's a pathway. Here are a set of pathways for each of us to think about how to do that, and then to kind of set out the options for each of us. I'm quite optimistic about the possibility of being able to do all of that, and very encouraged by the actions of the Essex Climate Action Commission to show leadership in this area. And my hope is that that will lead to benefits for all 1.5 million residents of Essex. towards normal. I mean, I think they're going to be different for quite a long time, but almost certainly the biggest one, and it's the largest contributor to our own carbon emissions, is international flights. And so not increasing our international travel to the kinds of levels that we might have been used to in the recent past would be number one. Number two would be make that transition to an electric vehicle really as quickly as you possibly can, because that will save a couple of tons of carbon emissions per year. Think about diet, make those changes. If you've got the option to plant some trees, well, planting 10 trees in 10 years will be saving a ton a year. That's not a lot immediately, but actually it's going to have benefits for biodiversity, for the wider environment, places for us to then to go and to enjoy and to feel well-being in those environments when we've planted trees. So thinking a little bit long-term as well as short-term will certainly help us create benefits for everybody, and at the same time feel as though that we're taking the individual actions that we feel able to do to get our carbon footprints down to that target of 1 ton per person. That's a safe place for humanity. Quite a lot to do to get there, but options are available.